Hello everyone, welcome to the Media Community Center, to everybody's hometown, a Media PA story. First of all, I have so many people that I would love nothing more than to thank. First of all, Cynthia Jetter, President of the Media NAACP. Without whom none of this would be possible. Thank you so much. Pastor Castle and the congregation of Second Baptist Church of Media, PA, for your support. Thank you to all the residents of Media that I talked to for this play and this project. It is so good to see some of you in the audience here tonight. I really appreciate all of your hard work and effort in getting this play where it is today. There will be a talk back after the show. You're not obligated to stay, but it is always good to start a conversation with our fellow community members and with the cast and crew of this show. A little bit of history about this play. This play was started in 2022, interviewing community members of North Media's Black community about the civil rights era and civil rights protests at the time that were happening in media and what it was like to grow up here. For a little bit more context, I'd love to introduce Dr. Baughn.
I met our playwright about 5 years ago, and he talked about having spoken to many of the folks in media about what's happening in North Island Street. And we went through a list of names that he had to talk to. You'll recognize some of those folks as we go through the play. But I also want to say thank you to Noah for his steadfastness. He was denied more than once. He was denied more than twice. And what we hope as you listen to this, that you will hear some of that denial and how we got back up again. So with that, I think
with that, we're going to introduce our actors. We're going to have our actors stand up and introduce themselves, and then we are pleased to present everybody's hometown. Aidan.
Hi, Aidan McDonald. Hello, Desmond McCaskey. Hey everybody, Amadou Tounkara. Manny Rimmer. Paul Phillips.
Imani Alyse.
Juan Baughn.
Mannix. Everybody's hometown. Characters. Brother, a black man and sister's brother. Sister, a black woman and brother's sister. The water, a lake named after a white man, a black woman that becomes the space. Her blue dress is the stage that the rest of the characters perform on. She is ageless. Ensemble. Mother, brother and sister's mother, a black woman. Suze, a black woman. Cheryl, a black woman. Lauren, a black woman. Daryl, a black man. Rich, a black man. Guy, a black man. Preacher, a black preacher. Woman, a black woman held in the media garage. Stanley Branch, a black man, 30s, chairman of the Chester Committee for Freedom Now, recently split from the NAACP. Gloria Richardson, a black woman, 40s, leader of the Cambridge, Maryland Nonviolent Action Committee. George T. Raymond, a black man, 40s or 50s, president of the Chester branch of the NAACP. Teacher, a white teacher. Clark, a white boy. James, a white man. And the choir. Setting, Media, PA, everybody's hometown, including the KKK, quote attributed to Anita Edwards. The house is based on the House of Big Pots, a family home in North Media. Note, the research and performance of this piece is indebted to the African American community of Media, PA, including recorded interviews with, written reflections by, and phone conversations with past and present community members, as well as the support and community of Second Baptist Church of Media. The characters of Suze, Cheryl, Lauren, Daryl, Rich, and Guy use dialogue almost exclusively from recorded interviews with and written reflections by these community members. The characters of Stanley Branch, Gloria Richardson, and George T. Raymond use dialogue from newspaper sources, such as the Delaware County Daily Times. Archival photographs and documents were provided by the Media Historic Archives Commission, including Juanita Edwards' essay, Growing Up in Media, circa 1950 to 1960, and Growing Up in Media, PA, the Media Historic Archives. This play is dedicated to Reverend Warren D. Mays, pastor at Second Baptist Church of Media, 1985 to 2022. Scene 1, the opening ritual. The water stands in the center of the stage, her dress shimmering all around her. The stage is lit in her brilliant blue light, and she speaks directly to the audience.
They call me Brumo. I am water, given a white man's name. A white man who brought my body from the Lenape, who used to summer here. A white man who brought my body from the Lenape, who used to summer here. Swimming in my waters, now the white man's children swim here. And on my other side, my children fish and skate on my winter space. And they say the Lenape are no longer here.
A reenactment of the first baptism of Second Baptist Church of Media, PA in Broomall Lake. Large mirrors descend, projecting the image out, a bird's eye view like that found in Baptist churches. Congregants, members of the ensemble and choir, and then the rest of the cast are brought into the lake and submerged and are lifted out again. One by one, they fill the water. Each is accompanied by a voice recording and dialogue projected onto the back wall from recorded interviews and events.
My children are here, brought here, escaped to here. They build homes and communities and villages. Here are doctors, dentists, business owners, deacons, workers, children, lovers, friends, and they long to fill me up once more.
The water lifts her arms, beckoning a blessing, inviting the audience into her memories. The ensemble and choir part the water's dress, the curtain, revealing a simple classroom, desks mostly empty except for 3 students and a teacher. Scene, childhood. A classroom, 6th grade students taking a spelling test. Brother and sister, the only 2 black children, in the middle of the classroom. A teacher at the front of the classroom stares intently at the 2 of them. Clark, a white boy, is sitting next to brother. 2 minutes left. Eyes on your own papers, please. Clark leans over to brother. Brother tries to cover his paper.
Hey, let me see your paper. No way. Come on, you have to. Why?
The teacher takes note and starts to stand up as the bell rings. Everyone gets up quickly, including the teacher who takes everyone's papers. Brother is about to leave with sister when the teacher grabs onto his shirt. He is firm and sickly sweet. Excuse me, young man, we have to talk. Sister leaves, but hangs around just outside. We both know why I kept you here.
Oh, no, sir. Did I do something wrong?
I saw you lean over and tell Clark the answer, right?
No, sir. It's just that,
Are you calling me a liar?
It's just that...
Well, I don't see how you can tell me what I saw isn't the truth.
That's not what I'm saying. He was looking...
Exactly. You let him look at your paper.
That's not what happened. Well, he was trying to, but
You
then
cheated, and I have the test to prove it.
The test?
Some of these words are at an 8th grade level. I put these in to encourage you kids, to give you a challenge, but there's no way you should be able to get it right. Now, how did you know how to spell belligerent?
I promise, sir. Please, I study hard. I love to read. I'm a
You
great
cheated. I shouldn't be disappointed. You've been underperforming in my class since the beginning.
You can't talk to my brother like that.
Excuse me, I can't believe you talk to me like that. I'm calling your mother. But first I'm calling the principal. Both of you, in my opinion, need remediation. You need to be with other people who need to be remediated. The teacher walks over to the phone and starts to dial the principal's number.
You want to put us in the non-academic class? The special class just because my brother did well on a spelling test? You said it yourself. You made it impossible. The fact that he got it right should mean he gets to go to the advanced classes.
I have tolerated just about enough sass from you.
Please, no. All right, she's just protective. Please, she doesn't mean it.
Doesn't mean it. Well, you can take care of yourself then, can't you? No way I'm listening to that man.
Transition. The chairs of the classroom become the main office, and brother and sister are sitting outside the principal's door waiting. Through their door, their mother is heard raising hell. After a few moments, the door swings open and then closes calmly as their mother composes herself.
We're going home.
The house. Mother cooks silently, brother and sister help, almost like extensions of their mother, preparing food, then eating, then washing dishes and cleaning up. A frenzy of activity as day turns into night, and brother and sister wait for the verdict from their mother. All three sit at the kitchen table.
You got into trouble.
But I didn't.
You did not talk back to me. You got in trouble.
He was totally unreasonable. It's not fair that brothers should be punished for getting the answers right.
Don't tell me what she should have done. I know what she should have done. That woman shouldn't be a teacher, but she is, and that's the world we live in. Now, you've got to learn how to act in this world. I can't take care of you forever. You're going to be in the normal classes.
Brother and sister turn toward each other, excited.
But I wasn't able to get you out.
Indicating.
This is what I'm saying. This is what,
It's not fair.
no.
Mother and sister disappear. Brother gets up and starts walking away dejected, growing smaller and smaller. The kitchen transforms into the street. Brother is walking down the street, headed to the store on an errand. He sees Clark walking towards him on the other side of the street and tries to duck behind a trash can, but Clark sees him and hurries over. Brother is uncomfortable.
Hey, they call you brother, right? Why do they call you that?
Because I've got a sister. She's my twin, so she's the sister.
Why didn't you let me cheat off you?
Cheating's wrong.
I saw the teacher pull you aside after class.
I have to go for it.
Wait, I didn't have to cheat off you, you know? I just thought you might know some of them better than me. You know, you're really good at kickball. I see you playing out on the field with your friends. That looks really fun.
Yes, because I'm an athlete. Yeah, everyone likes how I play, so I guess I play.
I'm better at spelling than I am at kickball.
It's not like it's hard.
I mean, it sort of is though. You know how to play and I don't.
I guess so.
Hey, how about this? We can teach each other. I'll teach you and you'll teach me.
Teach you?
Yeah, like we meet somewhere and I'll teach you to spell and you teach me how to play kickball.
I don't know.
It'll be fine. This way we can help each other out, right?
I mean,
Just say yes. We'll have to keep it quiet though because people might treat me weird if they saw us hanging out together. But I don't feel that way.
yeah.
So you're gonna help me. Okay. Great. I guess we're gonna make an academic out of you yet. I can't believe you're going for this. This kind of a thing. Aren't you supposed to be a jock?
You're trying to do the same thing.
All right. You're right. Still, we'll work together. Right?
Right.
Lights. Scene. Stories and people. Lights up on Lauren and Guy. They are situated in a liminal space, the space of stories. They speak to the audience as much as to each other.
This is my story.
This is my story.
This story belongs to us all of us together.
We are writing this story in our memories.
In the places we lived,
We loved,
we fought.
we had joy, more than joy,
There was sadness too.
and understanding, eventually.
Well, my name is Lauren. I was born in Chester Hospital, but I lived in India my whole life. I left there when I got married at 25. I went to Media High School.
I'm Daryl, lifelong media resident. I'm 70 years old. I work here as an administrator at the university. I live here in media.
In the 6th grade, we had a standardized test, and I scored in the 99th percentile. And the teacher literally asked me, did I cheat in the 6th grade? The smartest girl in the class, she thought I cheated off of her. Like I needed to cheat off of her. So that's just my story.
The remediation classes and the different levels. My mother went back for me, and when it came to talking to the teacher and to the administrators, let's just say that my mother went to see the teacher and the principal, so my father didn't.
We were loved. We were taken care of by the community. We looked out for each other. We made sure we succeeded.
In spite of the racism, not because of.
Exactly. In my class, there was 107, and there were 6 of us African Americans. And of the 6 of us, I think one's a lawyer, one has a master's, I have a doctorate. We did well. But there was a lot of prejudice. But being young, I didn't understand it at the time. I didn't know why I couldn't join the Brownies or the Girl Scouts. I've never been in a white person's home growing up. We went to school together, but we did nothing outside of the school.
Well, I had one experience. He taught me how to spell, and in turn, I got accused of cheating. And again, I'm thankful for my mother for sorting it all out. But still, the victories were so small, and they had to be held onto with everything you had. To satisfy my mother, they took me out of the lowest classes and put me into the next to the lowest class.
Still, you were the only one in that class taking math.
That's right. My mother was an amazing woman. She insisted, no matter what section he's in, he's taking academic courses. That meant he's taking Algebra 2, Latin 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and all of that.
That was good for you. I remember when black kids didn't succeed, they were sent to a special class. And the special class, all she did was crafts. And a lot of kids, not a lot, but quite a few, were in the special class, you know? All that work, all that effort just to keep us down.
And still, I pushed so hard to be a jock and an academic. And everybody else, they supported me, the entire neighborhood.
That's right. We were all so close, all of us. Out on the street playing with each other, walking around.
There were other neighborhoods too, villages of African American families. This was ours, North Media, North Olive Street. Everybody's hometown, Media slogan. Media was my home, but not my hometown. We didn't get those fuzzy feelings. Brumal's Lake wasn't for us. Our home was those 2 or 3 blocks.
It was hard, but at the same time, so clear. Where was our home and where was our hometown? A hometown has restaurants, stores, a main street, State Street, all those shops. We could go into almost any place except certain restaurants. There was the Arcadia and a few of them that we weren't allowed to go.
The Arcadia. It's interesting. They had to let me in there at a certain point because the coach would tell me to get him some coffee. The server didn't like that especially.
My mother was well known in the community as an activist and often solicited to help those who encountered prejudicial treatment at school, work, or with police. She, along with many in the community, were members of groups seeking equality, such as NAACP, Media, Civil League, the Media Friends, Fellowship House. They sought equity. There were incidents of over-policing, disparate school discipline, hiring practices, watchful and suspicious shop owners, and a litany of issues not exclusive to that time. She later formed the Citizens Community Task Force to combat the incidents of hate associated with the KKK when hate flyers were strewn all over our lawns, when the Klan had a permit to march nearby, and when skinheads beat a young man in Media. These incidents later prompted some to mock and revise the Media slogan, "Everybody's hometown," including the KKK.
Everybody's hometown. Not quite a great place to grow up, but not everybody's hometown.
At the end of the day, though, we had us.
We had Just Us.
Just Us by William Murphy starts to play. The choir appears and begins to sing.
And still, all we have is just us.
We're together.
And we're doing and we're done just hoping.
You're just praying.
Both of those are always going to be a part of this, but now,
We have just us. And it's time.
time to change the world, even if it's just us. We're gonna change the world.
The other characters start to speak one after another, their way of introducing themselves into the world, to the audience, becoming a part of the space. They begin in separate spaces, in pools of their own light.
It was a village. The north side of Media was home to a diverse black community with black doctors, dentists, business owners, educators. It was a strong, family-oriented, civically active, and faith-based community.
It truly was a village. I literally could go into anybody's house. Doors were always open then. It was a wonderful upbringing. On Memorial Day, we had a picnic in one family's home. This is every year. And at 4th of July, it was at our house. And then at Labor Day, it was at somebody else's house. And all the community would come to these houses, you know? Yeah, it was wonderful, wonderful growing up. In the block parties. Oh, those were famous. We had block parties. You bring your food. You know, you have the tables and chairs. You invite your friends and family.
We were complex in our belief system. My grandmother was a lifelong attender of Christ Church. She was the first person hit there in 1891. Her coming from the Danish West Indies she was a devout Lutheran, but she was always just as devout in her own religion. She was probably obeyed, and she brought those beliefs with her.
All the black churches in media were the beacons where you went to talk about your injustices. This is where you went to strategize. This is where you went to get your children involved in good activities, choir, trips, outings, and things like that.
As an athlete, you were pretty special, as long as you were winning. The job of the school seemed to be just to keep us eligible for sports. It was so frustrating.
As I got older, you could just see it. If I got an A, I copied off of somebody else. And the young people were racist without knowing they were racist.
Thinking about the media theater, in the early 1940s, an uncle of mine was arrested here in the theater for refusing to sit in the colored section. And in the early 1940s, he was sitting in jail here. My great-grandfather had to go out and bail him out of jail.
The American Red Cross contacted Linville Pool, and we could go to the pool from 8 to 10 in the morning, and they would give us lessons. We would walk 4 miles and be out of there before the white kids could go. I was a lifeguard for many years. The first black lifeguard that I know of around here.
Most people in media, most people of color, their ancestors had been slaves. Most people were not proud of it. We were quite proud of it because we took it as a badge of honor. My great-grandmother escaped 2 of her children, a 2-year-old and a 9-year-old.
I remember the only thing we learned about black history in school was when they talked about the slaves. And when they talked about the slaves, I just hung my head in shame. Everybody stared at me. Being the only black in the class, ugh, I hated it. And then they would sing songs like Old Black Joe, and I just couldn't take it. I hated it.
Going to Media High School was like traveling through 2 different worlds. My world of North Isle Street and the world of the other side. It was a black-white issue, no question about it. I wanted to do things that white students were able to do. I wanted to be in the theater. I wanted to be a good student. I wanted to be in the spring festival, but it wasn't okay to do that. And I wasn't thought to be a good student because I wasn't supposed to be a good student because I wasn't white. And I wanted so badly to be a good student. Maybe that's why I spent 55 years in education.
We had a music teacher when I was in 5th grade, I think. Mrs. Henry was her name, and she seemed like a lovely person. We would go to her class once a week, and every time we did, we would sing a number of songs. But she always wanted to sing Dixie, you know, on the way down south in the land of the cotton, you know, which I was here in Dixie. And half of the class was kids of color. And I would not actually sing the words, but I would mum the words. So it appeared I was actually singing. So, because my ancestors had escaped slavery in Dixie. And so she gave this really kind of mediocre, less than enthusiastic response. And she would say, well, come on, sing, let's do it again. And she would make us sing the song 2 or 3 times. And each time she would be looking at the class, sort of like vision, counting the number of voices. You could see she was saying, why isn't this louder? Or why isn't this more enthusiastic? And so she would eventually get frustrated and give up. We would sing something else.
I'm embarrassed to say this. I knew very little about Martin Luther King. When he died, I was like, what's the big deal? Most of us, we just didn't have any Black history. And I wasn't following the news like I should have been.
In the business area, there was still de facto segregation. People of color like me and my friends, we were not able to swim at Broomall's Lake. Many of the businesses on State Street did not welcome people of color access to them.
My thing was always swimming. Everybody used to tease me because anytime I could have a chance to go swim, I did. In Chester, there was a little creek. We called it Flat Rock. And the Black kids would go swim at Flat Rock because where else would we swim? We all learned to swim, but not as good as me.
Not being able to swim in Broomall's Lake, it was funny because people on Facebook over the past year or 2 or 3, I would see posts, some of our friends who were white graduates in the media saying, oh, wasn't it a great time swimming there? It didn't really stop, But I said, did you notice any of us were missing? Didn't you? And they did. It was so stunning to them. Like the people they hadn't thought of. They spent 9 months out of the year in classes at school. Like, we weren't there something with them. And it was really eye-opening for them.
I think media is a great place. Not a perfect place, but a great place with its flaws. I met a lot of wonderful people here. I had a lot of great neighbors. I had a lot of great teammates. I had a lot of great times just being a kid here.
Most of the people worked at factories, bowling, stock paper, sunship, and my dad worked at Scott Cooper. My mom had 5 kids, so because when you hear this thing about a village, it takes a village to raise. I am telling you, our community was truly a village. I'm still friends with the kids I grew up with. We went through college together, we were in each other's weddings. When I was growing up, we would go to French Creek, we would go to Wildwood, we would go to Atlantic City, we would go to Mason Landing, but there was a caravan for cars, and everybody made sure that everybody could go. You could always find somebody to get in the car with.
Sometimes I'll just drive through the streets and look at the houses of places where families that I knew that are gone. They are not there anymore. One of my treasures is the building right across the street here. When it was Media High School, no matter where I go, Media is my hometown.
My family had always been interested in civil rights and doing what we can on a personal basis, especially with the ancestors who were runaway slaves. And as I said earlier, 1% of those people escaped successfully. And my great-great-grandfather was the first African-American member of the county bar. So I felt this strong obligation to stand up and speak up and do whatever I can as I try to instill my own growth. It's a huge responsibility to continue on that tradition of my ancestors, to speak up and speak out whenever I can. I'm really just worried what's happening in our country.
Just Us starts again, and the pools of light connect, bringing everyone into the same space.
So much heartbreak.
And so much hope.
So join us. Become parts of the Just Us. Change the world. Listen and share and love. Act and change the world.
Justice.
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 Just us.
Light. Scene. Burning shores. The water stands on stage, eyes lit with warning.
Fire is coming. Broomall's children built a house on my shores. A house for them and only them. Segregated and separate. This was the house for them. And it burned.
She transitions into a poem, Burning Shores.
Burning shores, burn, which is the last fire. Burning shores, burn. When will we be delivered? Burning shores, burn. Wood and ash, floats in my waters, sinks into my silt, depths and depths. It sinks and rises, sinks and rises. Burning shores, burning. My waters fill them, quenching flame. Wood does not float forever. Falls from heights above. Their house of flame burns the fire next time.
Lights. Scene, our part. The house. Easter weekend, 1964. Protests in Delaware County are underway to desegregate Chester schools. Brother stands in the kitchen with mother, who is constantly moving, a state of practiced momentum, gathering and preparing and cooking.
College is all right, I guess.
You don't sound too all right about it.
Back in high school, it was a whole other world. Now that I'm away, I just can't stay away.
You had track, you had your academic classes that I fought for.
I just think that...
You just needed to show them what you could do. You ran them all the way to the state championships, all the way to undefeated season.
None of it was ever enough. I never felt enough. I was never told I could do anything more.
I told you, and now you are in college.
But I still feel this way about the place that's supposed to be my hometown. They don't want me for me.
So what? What you gonna do about it?
I'm gonna stand beside everyone at the protest. I'm gonna be there with Mr. Branch, and we're gonna march.
I did not call you home to do anything of the sort. Marching or none of it.
You don't understand. I can't sit by when they're out there marching for our freedom.
No, son, you don't understand. I already know. This is what's gonna happen. The people are gonna go down, march in Chester, they're gonna get arrested, and they're gonna put people in the courthouse jail. That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna take everyone at the protest, and they're gonna round them up, and when the trucks pull out, they're gonna lock the gates and let them see.
I've gotta go to Chester. I've gotta march. And
when you get in trouble, when you get your face on the front page of the newspaper, you know what happens then? You're in college. Your drag was deferred. But if you get out there and get in trouble, what's stopping them from signing you up? From sending you to Vietnam? I didn't call you home to go to Chester to march. I'm not going to worry about you.
How am I going to explain this to my friends?
This isn't anything about explaining to your friends. Why do you think I'm making all this food? When they get arrested, someone's going to have to feed them. You're going to carry it for me, with me. And together, we're going to feed everyone. They are our neighbors, our friends, our community. They're going to need water, and we're going to bring it to them. We're going to provide. That's our part.
The lights go down on the house as it comes up on Sue's on the street corner. Scene, summer nights. As Suze enters, a street light comes up on a group of young men singing a doo-wop song. She crosses to the gate and then turns to face the audience.
Some summer nights, you could hear the neighborhood boys harmonizing the 60s doo-wop song under the corner street lights. And they were good. I remember the rest of the neighborhood and extended family.
She turns to the boys singing and smiles, listening. They finish their song and look at her.
I could know you from the look of your cheek, the way you walked, what family you were from, who your people were. I knew you.
The sounds of splashing, swimming, yelling is heard. White people at the Broomall Lake Country Club.
The lake was right there at the end of our block. It's not so impressive now, eaten up by the dam, by drought, by time. I remember. I heard them and I saw them walking down to the lake. Kids would walk by with their swimsuits and towels to go swimming. It was a bitter feeling. It was like the differences didn't exist to them. Disparities, like how my white friend after a certain age would have planned activities other than playing with me. Swim club, sports teams, or no reason at all. After a certain age, it was like something changed. Something got to them. And somehow, strangely, we accepted that it was fine going to the lake to fish or ice skate in winter. Ironically, in the 1920s, my great-grandfather was a caretaker at the lake and was charged to keep trespassers, his own family, off the premises.
My mother used to tell me all the time, Guy, you'll be able to go wherever you want. In the high school in 1961, we had a major riot. They used to call us names, particularly the gals. It was horrible. I remember one day we said, you guys keep this up and there's going to be a war. The next day we were in the auditorium after lunch and the war broke out. Chains, bats, it was ugly. Half the people who were fighting were on the same basketball team with me.
I had a few fights over the years with individual black kids. Same with white kids, though. We had fights with each other individually, but then individual relationships were pretty good.
My mother called and asked me to come home. Everybody can't be a martyr. Somebody's got to feed them. When they got on the other side of the bridge, somebody had to drive them back home. My mother always felt that you didn't have to be out front to be out front.
Lauren enters and joins the growing group.
We walked to school together.
And often walked back home for lunch before racing back to school again.
We walked home together. There was two worlds growing up for all of us of color, the good and the bad. But it was media. In our way, all of us had to fight.
It was media.
Lights. Scene, flood. The water is troubled, storming, dressed for battle. Her visage is fury, her gaze is cold. It begins to rain, torrent, and storm. She is here. A song is sung underneath her poem, It's Gonna Rain. Around her, we see people preparing for protest.
My children, in your cages, hidden from the world, you cannot hide from me. I will be here. I will resurrect in the time of rebirth, but first, the smaller death. I bring the rain. I bring the flood. I bring the torrent and the gale. I bring the fury, and I bring me. I bring my winter. To my children, thirsty, crying out, forsaken, they will know today that they are not forsaken, anything but forsaken. They will be free.
Thunder, storm, clouds, cracking, cacophony, lights. Scene, Freedom Brigade. In the congregation of the Second Baptist Church of Media, a preacher speaks to the congregation. The water sits in the audience, listening, responding with the call and response when she is moved to.
Sing, choir!
Yes!
The choir begins to sing an opening song, picking up intensity in response to the words of the song and the words of the preacher.
Yes, preacher.
Something is coming.
Yes, it
We
is.
heard the word preached by Reverend King. We're aware right now of things happening in our own community.
Yes.
Justice is real.
Yes.
We serve a just God,
Yes, we
a
do.
righteous God. These men and women are fighting injustice,
Yes.
fighting for a just God, a righteous God. All across this area,
Yes, sir.
protests, people, men and women who are not afraid to stand up for their rights,
Yes.
to stand up for justice, the justice that they know God gives. We serve a
Righteous God.
Yes,
Lord.
a righteous God, a just God.
Yes.
A righteous God.
Just this past Friday, Saturday, all these protests and tests that some of our people are fighting for justice, fighting for respect, fighting for our civil rights. They are being arrested and brought right here to the media, to the courthouses, where they're being held in conditions not fit for people. What can we do, people who are God, and help our fellows? How are we God's people supporting, uplifting, raising up our fellow man, our fellow woman? We serve a
That's right.
Righteous God.
Amen.
righteous just God, a just God.
Yes.
That's right. Now our fellow human
Yes.
beings, made in the image of God,
Yes.
like you, like me,
Yes.
we need to serve a just
Yes.
God.
Yes.
Sister Cheryl told us that as she was spreading the word.
Yes, she
Sister
has.
Susan's mother, you all know her.
Yes.
There is a just woman, a woman who serves us.
Right.
Just God.
They need food. They need water. These basic necessities which have been denied to them. They need our
Yes,
help.
they
What are we going to do, congregation?
Yes.
The ensemble is ecstatic, but still nobody steps forward until brother stands up and says,
I'll go.
With that, a group of younger members takes the leap. They stand up with brother in the crowd. Among the other members of the congregation, the adults, the choir resumes their song.
We'll go.
Will help.
Other members step forward. Together they make up the 7 members of the Freedom Brigade.
Suffer, little children, and forbid them not to come on to me. For of such is the kingdom of heaven. Will you go and help those in need and bring the word of justice to them?
We will.
Go in peace. Go with God.
Go in peace. Go with God.
The water anoints each of them in turn, joyful, respectful, and excited. Lights. Scene, night. The Media Courthouse garage. Protesters from the March in Chester, represented by the choir, are held behind tall iron bars that stretch into oblivion, sleeping on the cold ground, huddled together. Sister walks among them with solemn movements.
I'm standing here. There's nothing else to say except I'm standing here and I already feel it slipping away. There has to be more to this. And earlier, when we were singing our songs and marching our march, everything was right. And nothing could conquer us. But then the police came, and the first of us fell. Dragged off and corralled. Thrown in the backs of trucks.
Bert Hodges' photo from a paddy wagon appears. The Delaware County Daily Times, March 30th, 1964.
We said there'd be too many of us for their jails. That there was no way that they could stifle all of us. We were right. They put us here instead. Here, where the cold air of the night passes through the cold bars of iron holding us in, biting our skin. In a garage, a half a mile from my home, from my bed, from my mother and my brother. And I know they got to hear me. They heard it. Earlier, no way they couldn't have. The sirens, it was like they were showing off.
Photo of a protester laying in front of a police car from the Delaware County Daily Times, March 30th, 1964.
My brother isn't here. I need him here, but he can't be. Vietnam is... If he were here, now, this next stop is another war. Things are getting worse. They had riot helmets today. First in the state to have police with riot helmets, ready for war against people standing in the streets. They deputized the trash collectors. Gave them nightsticks, special badges, set them loose. They said they're not armed with anything else. What's to stop them? Children. Schools. That's what this is all about. They want us out of their sight, out of view. All right, I say, leave us alone. Let us be in our own way and you'll be in yours, but no. No, that can't be. We can't leave media. It's still our home, but not our hometown. Fields where you can't run, but break an ankle on all the rocks. And when they give our children the buildings, leaking and falling apart around our ears, when they give our children the books, where mold is the only thing holding the pages together, and they want us to better ourselves. They tell us that they made it. Why can't we? I saw them beating Walter Bryant and then dragging him off.
A photo of Walter Bryant from the Delaware County Daily Times, March 30th, 1964 appears.
We were sitting
choir starts to sing.
We were singing and laughing, enjoying all over, filling the sky with our songs, with our joy. Then, one by one, they put Bryant in the hospital. Threw Lawrence Henry in a paddy wagon, baton around his neck.
One of the ensemble members stands. They represent George T. Raymond, president of the Chester branch of the NAACP. They stare out between the bars. Behind them, the picture of civil rights leaders held for a hearing in court from the Delaware County Daily Times, April 2nd, 1964, is projected.
The school board isn't going to judge unless you push them. They're not going to move unless we kick them.
Delaware County Daily Times, March 28, 1964. Another choir member stands. It is Stanley Branch, chairman of the Chester Committee for Freedom Now, recently split from the NAACP. Branch, on the opposite side of Sister, also stares out between the bars.
City Council and the school board want racial complaints presented to the City Human Relations Commission because they can control it. We must stay in the street for our children.
Delaware County Daily Times, March 28, 1964.
I was in the midst of calling all off. The air was getting cold, the crowd was dispersing, our numbers were dwindling. I knew we needed to come back, but we needed the rest to go on. That's when they showed up. The police, the state troopers, riot sticks for a sit-down protest.
Another ensemble member representing Gloria Richardson also stands and goes to stand next to Sister.
We crossed the bridge, massive tons of steel and concrete stretching over the water. We removed the barricades, and before any car, any tire, any other person had crossed that bridge, we crossed it. And when we got to the other side, state troopers in their helmets were there to meet us. And Mr. Branch, he stopped us, waving his hand, and we sat down. We laid down right there, and just as before, we sang our song. We shall overcome.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome
someday. God is on our side, and we will win.
Delaware County Daily Times, April 1st, 1964. Lights. Scene, night part 2. Ensemble on stage. The choir continues singing We Shall Overcome. One member steps forward representing Suze.
As a child, about 9 years old, I recall sitting in the window of my bedroom when I heard voices and commotion in a normally quiet neighborhood.
My husband and I were awakened to the sounds of buses arriving and people singing the all-familiar civil rights song, We Shall Overcome.
With my face pressed against the window, I could vaguely see the far corner, but through the trees and with aid of the streetlight, there was an indiscernible gathering and loud voices. I ran to tell my mother, who discovered that about 30 black men had been arrested for demonstrating at a prominent politician's home.
Suddenly, police cars began to arrive, and we noticed that many were from surrounding towns. Their lights were flashing. The streets surrounding of the area of Media Courthouse Garage were being blocked off, and a small group of news reporters gathered.
I later learned that trashmen were deputized to corral and arrest the black protesters. They were herded into the courthouse garage building, which would serve as an inappropriate jail cell with no facilities for rest or sanitation.
All of this was happening to our bewilderment, right before our now wide-awake eyes. When it appeared all the buses had arrived, the people who seemed to be in charge began giving orders and directions loudly over megaphones to the occupants of the buses.
Cheryl and her husband in bathrobes rush outside onto their porch, flashing lights illuminating them. The noise of neighbors gathering and talking, and cars and buses driving by, along with shouts from detained protesters.
These people have been protesting peacefully to support the school desegregation march.
Ensemble members representing the protesters file into the garage.
After all the protesters have been detained into the makeshift prison, the crowd, most of the police in their flashing light cars, officials, and all but a couple of news reporters dispersed. My husband and I went back into the house and tried to put behind us until morning what was happening to our brothers and sisters across the street. Sleep did not come easy that night.
The next morning, the choir is still singing. Cheryl tries to go through a morning routine. The gate has come down in front of the protesters. She faces away from them and the choir hushes. Cheryl throws up her hands and begins to pray.
What could I do to help our brothers and sisters who are locked in that county garage? Makeshift prison like cattle in a pen.
The light shifts, focusing on one member of the ensemble. Cheryl leaves her work, or tries to, when the member calls out to her.
Cheryl, it's me. From Chandler University, you know me.
Oh my, yes. How are you?
I'm still here. I'm fighting together with my brothers and sisters, but we need water, Cheryl.
I'll see what I can do.
Cheryl exits and returns with water.
Here.
The man drinks. He is thirsty but makes sure to save some.
Thank you. It's a blessing. You are a blessing, Cheryl.
Of course, you're welcome. I'll be back.
The community quickly came together and picketed the building for justice and humane treatment of these people. At the age of 9, it was my first protest.
I don't remember how long the protesters were detained in that makeshift pen of a prison. I do remember that many people from all over Delaware County, both black and white, came to the aid of my brothers and sisters as they proudly fought and went to prison for all of our rights as citizens. To God be the glory.
Lights. Scene. The water calls home. The lake. The water stands in the midst of chaos, removed and quiet and proud.
My children marched, and now,
She is small, vanishing into dryness.
I
Crouched.
don't know. I just don't know what they're doing to me. I can feel my banks. They're wider now. The water's nearly gone now. I hear whisperings too. They say I am made for a generous man, a kind man, a comrade of a man, kin to all men, a champion of civil rights, liberties abound. I don't know what to think anymore. They say that his spirit lives on. I don't see it. They say it is sharing community. I don't see it. Not in him. He doesn't walk these hills. I walk my hills. The tall reeds grow here. Now with the chill of winter come again, there is no more water to make the ice. If there were, would my children come back? Would all my black boys and girls come back to bask under summer suns and feel the tug of the fish on the line at my north end? Would they come back? They can't. There's a swimming pool there now. Concrete and chlorine, grown over and mossy. Autumn and winter are not kind to men. Their time is the spring. It is not kind to me either.
Brother enters with sister. They walk up to the water and help her to her feet. They walk with her across the stage and then all sit in chairs talking, visiting.
So they took our fishing area and they turned it into a swimming pool? That's all right. I don't really like fishing that much anyway.
Did you see the flag?
On the projector, a tattered American flag waves against a gray sky.
In the parking lot?
Yeah.
I did.
It's tattered to shreds almost.
Under no circumstances should that be allowed. I mean, that's a shame. And there's a van out there too.
The correctional man. Beautification project.
Still cleaning up messes. I wish there was some point at which everything could have been different.
There was. It is, but I see what you mean. I love you.
I love you.
And I love you.
Lights. Scene. Reaching back. Rich sits on the stage. The bars are behind him. He speaks out. As he begins, he is an older man. Diving deeper and deeper into the past, he becomes youthful, a young man again. The time is relative. And then he comes back to the present, to now.
Reaching back, remember, some good times, some not so good times. My doctor delivered me at home during a hurricane. My great-grandfather bought the house. He was the first student of color to graduate from Media High School in 1887, the first African-American reporter of news at the county courthouse in Media, and the first African-American attorney in Delaware County. He was admitted to the bar in 1891. He would be the only African-American who would be a member of the Delaware Bar until 1950 or 1951. His family name, whatever generation, was always Papa, Papa this, Papa that.
He points up to a window in the courthouse above the iron gate.
That's the office that Papa looked at. My uncle, his grandson, ended up at the protest. He looked up. Did he see Papa from all those years ago? Looking back at him, media was a multi-level society. It wasn't in your face type of racism, but there was always a line that you were expected to know where you belonged.
James enters.
I knew we were segregated and that we each had our own sections of town. We got along pretty well on an individual basis. We were naive in those days.
Rich responds in his own space to James, pushing into a back and forth rhythm.
Media became a Commonwealth borough in 1850. That lake was segregated until 1975.
We belonged to Broomall's Lake. Now it's all drained, but the old building is still there. That's where everyone went swimming.
Well, not everyone.
One thing we used to do was ask people from out of town if they wanted to go swimming. I had a friend named George. He was African American. I said to my mom, I'd like to take George to Broomall's. There was a long silence as she tried to explain it. You know, guys liked to fish, but whenever they tried to fish, they were always chased off. Why the heck couldn't they fish? We members of the club, I at least never knew there was any effort to chase people off.
Suze is lit up, entering the scene.
None of you realized.
Lauren is lit up, entering the scene.
I gained friendship with some of my white classmates. They didn't understand what I went through. I told one of my classmates, I said, do you realize we lived literally almost across the street from each other? And I never got inside your house, not once.
Now, I understand that it was discriminatory back then, but the race issue in our region had not come before. We hadn't had first-hand experience with lynchings, riots, or protests until the 60s. It was still far from what it should have been.
Even that is an understatement.
There was a lot of prejudice. But being young, I didn't understand it at the time. We went to school together, but we did nothing outside of the school.
Even though we were friends, we weren't friends in the sense of inviting each other over for dinner. In school, we were encouraged to know whose birthday was coming up and get them a gift. There was a girl in my class, Jane, a black girl, and when my birthday came, when I opened my gift from her, it was a pocket knife.
He pulls out a pocket knife and admires it lovingly. It is old and worn, but well loved.
I always thought, what a nice gift to get. I never would have gotten such a nice gift from a white kid. I brought it up to her at a party. She didn't remember it, but it means so much to me that I still remember it. And at that party, there were a lot of black people from media. On Monday at work, I worked for Guy, or he was the principal of the school I worked at. It was his party. And Guy said to me,
How'd you like the party?
I liked it.
Did you think anything unusual?
Well, I think my wife and I were the only white people there.
Welcome to my world.
Oh, that made me laugh at the time. And now.
At school, they had a minstrel show. Obviously, I didn't want to be in the minstrel show. My white classmates They didn't understand this. They didn't understand what I went through.
This fine theater itself was the site of many black-faced minstrel shows. My uncle was arrested once. He came in, paid his money, and wanted to sit in the middle of the theater. You were expected to know where you belonged.
The media theater, the balcony was reserved for the colored folks. We always wanted to go up there. There were no signs. Nobody ever said it to us. It was understood. We resented it. We said, why can't we go up there?
It was the adults in media who really kept this racism going. I had developed a romance with a white cheerleader. When her mother found out about it, she went to the police. She made a threat that if I didn't stop seeing her daughter, she would send her daughter to a convent and have me arrested.
Romance played a big part in our joy. All of the different neighborhoods of media. The Park, Bedrock, South Media, East Media, all of them. I had to sneak in and I had to sneak out because I had girlfriends in each of them.
All of those things you were expected to know. And if you didn't know, there was always some other person in the community to advise you that this is the way it was.
Everyone puts their hands over their hearts and looks off to an invisible flag. Rich speaks in the cadence of the Pledge of Allegiance.
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America every day in school, and with liberty and justice for all. Those were hollow words. It was liberty and justice for some people, but not others. There was a very strong Ku Klux Klan presence in Delaware County. In the 1920s, the Ku Klux Klan was having raids up and down the street and cross burnings. In the backyard of Papa's house, a group of hooded men gathered. They were going to start doing raids and up and down our street. Papa pulled out his pistol in his belt and went out to confront these men alone. He could recognize the men's voices through the hoods. He talked them out of doing any home raids. They went up to 8th Street and they burned the cross at 8 an hour, which was clearly visible to everyone in the African American community. And then poof, it vanished like it never happened. Just below the surface, just below the surface.
I have a lot of memories about Olive Street. There was a black dentist on Olive Street, Dr. McKnight or something like that.
No, it was Dr. King.
Dr. McKnight was across from my house.
Right. My father was very cheap, so if I had any money, my father would expect me to pay for my own dentist visit. I heard nice things about him from the black kids, and I liked him. He explained things to me better than the white dentists I used to go to.
All the black churches and media were the beacons, where you went to talk about your injustices. This is where you went to strategize. This is where you went to get your children involved in good activities, choir, trips, outings, and things like that.
I had a great uncle on my paternal side who was a pastor at the Second Baptist back in the early 1920s. He was buried at Eden Cemetery along with my paternal ancestors.
I was a member of Second Baptist. My mother, father, everybody. I mean, all my friends went to Second Baptist. I got married in that church. All my family have had their homegoings in that church. You could get dinners down in the basement. We had Easter programs, Christmas programs for the youth.
My grandmother was a lifelong attendant of Christ Church. She was the first person baptized there, first person of color baptized there in 1891.
Media had segregated senior school trips until 1961. Integrated classes would travel by train. They would ride down to Baltimore. When they got to Baltimore, the white students were allowed to stay in the cars. But then, in Marseille, the African American students had to go to the rail cars. And whenever they were going to be staying, the white students stayed in hotels, things like that. But the African American students were forced to stay in colored boarding homes. The only time they got an opportunity to reunite together on the school trip was for the class picture. And when I first saw these old pictures from their earlier senior trips, I always wondered why the African American student had these blank stares or frowns until I found out the story, the indignity of being in segregated and separate rail cars. It was just too much.
I didn't go on our senior class trip. After they came back, I heard, not immediately, but years later, the white people told me we wanted to go out and have a nice time and go out to eat, and none of the black kids could. None of us in the North thought that there was that kind of discrimination. So someone would go out and get food, and they'd play cards with the black kids. I thought it was cool that the white guys stayed back and spent some time with the black kids.
But also, remember, Media High School graduated their first class in 1882. From 1882 to 1965, we never had a black teacher. So we're going to school all this time, and the hypocrisy of going to school, get good marks, and get a good education, and maybe go on to college or something like that. But where are you going to work? Could you come back home to your hometown and teach? Could you come back home to your hometown and coach? But what we were seeing, no.
Our guidance counselor, she told me I could be a clerk because my mother could not afford to send me to college. And my mother went and talked to her, and she said she shouldn't have told me that because she was going to do all she could to send me to college. And she did. Both of my brothers went to college, and they both had their masters.
Media used to be kind of like a Camelot. Your big highlight of the weekend was to walk from one end of media to the other and back. Basically, it was standing on the corner, doing doo-wop songs and things like that. Those treasures that I always had.
Lights. Scene. Neighbors. Suze, Daryl, Guy, and Rich sit on porches. James and Clark watch them from above on the balcony of a newly constructed house.
There are less now. The big name families, new developers, new housing, new families.
Some family members have resided in the media for so long. People who belong to those names look like they belong to certain families. I could walk down the street and I know somebody who's a Randolph, or a Somerville, or a Moe, or a Burton, without ever having met that person.
Slowly but surely, those African American families have left. Their parents or grandparents died off. Their children didn't want to live in media anymore. And now, for people of moderate means, media has become almost an unattainable place to live anymore. It's not the same. It meant a lot to the descendants of these old media families when they created North Star Park. And what many people didn't realize that a single black woman owned that land, and then the family turned it around rather than selling it for condos or houses or stuff like that. Sold it back to the borough so that all medians, black or white, could have a space to remember the founding families. But sometimes it feels like everybody's gone.
I remember when all the law offices started coming closer to us, to our neighborhood. People 1 street, 2 streets over were moving and their houses became law offices. It stopped right before our street, before our neighborhood.
One of the things that I want to do before I pass on, I want to ride that trolley car again.
The sound of the trolley is heard.
I haven't been on that trolley car in 62 years. The trolley will go all the way down State Street. I want to do that again. I always remember the joy of riding back and forth.
I remember the test. I remember the test when you got your driver's license, trying to pass the trolley as it was going down on one side and cars were parked on the other. Not everyone passed that test. Some people still aren't passing that test.
I would like to go down to Blue Ball's Lake once before I pass on. Never been there, 75 years. See what it's like.
There seems to be this renewed interest in terms of preserving the city's really rich history that we had because some of the descendants still live here. Those 4 or 5 pockets where families of color have lived, it's a lot of rich history here. And I think oftentimes when people are looking for heroes, they look to basketball players and rappers and football players. But there's history here. There's history in our own families. And oral history is so important because that kind of history is typically not written down. But the only way to preserve that history is projects. And if we can translate that into action, I think it's such a wonderful thing.
Media has a long history of marching up and down State Street. And for sports events and celebrations, I participated in that. I was a link in that chain. I think media is a great place, not a perfect place, but a great place with its flaws. I met a lot of wonderful people here. I had a lot of great neighbors. I had a lot of great teammates. I had a lot of great times just being a kid here.
Neighbors kind of looked up to one another. We still had to be respectful, any of them, regardless of whether they were related to us or not. I was in here and cussing up on State Street somewhere. By the time I got home, my family knew all about it. I had to account for myself. That was a part of our existence.
I love media. I really do. I can't think of any place I'd rather have been raised in.
Like, scene, waters rising. The water fills the space once more. Her dress is lit darkly. The storm is brewing. The tone is serious, solemn, and determined.
I am here for my children. I know that there's much to do. The work is never over. Struggle and strive and find new meaning, new ways of being. Now is the time of rising waters. A storm is brewing and my children can sense it. On the wind, my winds blowing across my surface, stirred and bubbling. Stirred into an action I wait in their hearts and seek fulfillment. I will be fulfilled, not denied. Old tensions find new purchase. Purchasing ground and land develop. I watch my shores and feel the pull, aching, pulling away from me. My children cry out for my waters. I wait, I hold on, and still will I deny? Will you?
Lights. Scene, come to the water. Everyone, at the lake, the second baptism. The water stands with arms outstretched. She is ready to call the children home.
My children gathered here. My skirts swirl and eddy as the reeds and mud sticks in my toes, connecting me to the earth. I hope I can see you. I hope you can see me. When through the smoke we find this place anew, washed in ash and dried in the flood of heartbreak. My skin tightens, the sun is beating down, warm my waters to points untenable. Come on in and bathe once more. Receive your baptism. Happiness, heartbreak, hope. Come home. Come home. Come home.
Brother steps forward.
I want to love this place.
Sister steps forward.
We lived here,
Grew up here.
went to church here,
I love this place.
but it hurts us.
How can a place you love hurt you?
The preacher enters the lake, mirroring the baptism at the top of the show.
How many times must we get placed in the crucible?
Why must it always be us?
There's a lot that makes this place unique.
There's a lot that makes this place the same as everywhere else.
Not by water, but by fire next time.
The preacher reaches down and scoops water into their hands. They begin to anoint the cast, beginning with the ensemble and then on to brother and sister.
What if next time it was different, better?
Media was a great place to grow up.
It still is.
Growing up was so different for us. I just don't know. Do people see us?
Our mother would feed us, cook for everybody.
The pots were so big you could fit a whole world in them. Put all of the people you loved in, all the flavor of being from a place, knowing your neighbors, keeping faith together, that together. You prosper and bloom, grow and burst into a beautiful flower. We were always told by our people how wonderful we could become.
We heard all too often that we weren't.
We didn't see ourselves, but we succeeded. In spite of them, and because of us.
We had each other. We still do. And I have you.
You have me. Together.
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 With justice
Built
built by just us.
We can live in a hometown that we can truly call
Everybody's
hometown.
The preacher flings a handful of water onto the audience, blessing them. End of play.
Just before we have our talk back with our audience, and hopefully we'll stay for a few minutes for that, we as the cast want to say thank you to our playwright, and we'd like you to hear from him in terms of what his vision was for this stage read and how he feels about it now. No?
Yeah, thank you so much, Beth, and thank you so much, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. This staged reading was really a community offering. When I started working on this play, and especially working with Doc and everybody that I talked to all those years ago, right after the pandemic, it's crazy. It's been a long time. When I first started writing this play, I always, knew that it needed to be presented to the community that it came from and the place that it came from. And so I just wanted to say thank you all so much for being here, for listening to these words, to these amazing actors, listening to these stories. It's really crucial for this process. And I just want to say thank you all so much again for being a part of this.
Thank you to our playwright. There's at least one person, if not more, in this room who were interviewed for this play. So if you're in the room and you were a part of the interviewing process, we'd love to hear from you and to hear how you think we handle your piece. Anyone?
I hope one thing that comes out crystal clear about this play and the experience. Media, to me, was the equivalent of the Harlem Renaissance. We had doctors, lawyers, business people, and we had a village that helped each other. I was so blessed to live between the Baughns and the Moats because they kept me fed when my family didn't have enough to eat. I would go to the corner, stick my head and my hand through the fence. Mr. Moat, you got a hamburger? Mr. Moat, you got a hot dog? And I could always get something to eat. I could turn the other way, and when I didn't have enough milk for my cereal for my brothers and I, or a cup of sugar, I could go to Miss Irma Bowen's house and get a cup of milk and some sugar. That's one of the reasons, I never told you this, that's one of the reasons why I tried to stay such good friends with you, because you always ate well. But I didn't comprehend how much Juan and other people and myself, his brothers, Somervilles, Randolphs, were part of the chain, the everlasting chain of the Black community in media. I'm very proud to be the great-great-grandson of the first African-American student to graduate from media, William H. Ridley. And as this eloquent actor said, we were ashamed sometimes to discuss our roots of slavery, because that's always where it started. It didn't go back to the pyramids we built in Egypt. It didn't go back to Lewis Latimer and other African American inventors. It's always started at slavery. And it got old quick, and it was depressing. Fortunately, I knew about my family coming up from slavery, escaping from plantations, and finding freedom in media. But one edict that we always had, boy, it's education. They can take your car, they can take your house, but your education is not anything that can ever be taken from you. And I'm so blessed to live in media and have such good role models. Last thing I want to say is, these are my actual media high school letters. Now, the sweater doesn't fit, but the letters are everlasting. And I earned this letter as a sophomore on the league-winning track team that was captained by Dr. Juan Baughn. Thank you.
Anyone else, would anyone from the cast have anything to say before we turn to the audience? Anyone out here have anything you'd like to add or say or feel? Yes, please. This is our leader of our NAACP. Thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you. I know this wasn't an easy task, and I know it's not always easy to share your personal experiences. But what I'd like to leave you with is, our unit is 100 years old, as one of the NAACP units came out of a civil rights incident. And that's how we became Media NAACP. The number one complaints that we get today are from the school districts. Bencrest and Rose Tree and Wallingford and Swarthmore, where our young children are being mistreated on a daily basis. Whether it's being spit at, whether it's having young boys walk behind you with their phone making the sound of a whip, whereas kids are being kicked as they walk down the steps. Young girls' braids are being cut as they sit in their classroom. And I can go on and on. So, it's not gone. It hasn't just disappeared. It's there, and it's alive, and it's well every day. And I hope we reflect on your story and understand that it is real. And that we still need to stand up for all these young people in these schools in our area and to support the parents. About 4 weeks ago, we did a workshop with the Education Law Center to work with our parents to train and teach them on how to advocate for their children and their rights. And it's not just the parents, we all are responsible. Thank you.
I'm a lifelong resident of Delaware myself. I am a 1988 graduate of Crest High School. Caitlinette is my name. My dad came here in 1965 with my parents. But I'm a product of the Quick India movement. And I'm just so grateful for this play. I'm so grateful for your courage because although I was raised with an understanding of the Quit India movement a little bit, I don't think that I had enough, I wish I went to media rather than at that time my neighborhood right a couple streets away, technically Upper Providence was zoned for Rose-Tree School. But now all the same children in my neighborhood are going to media school. And there's so much history there. And I mean, we've just been through an election where the presidential candidate was, half from my specific background and half, African American. And there's so much division so often, but I'm so grateful that this dialogue is happening, and I'm grateful that if I come here to this play on a Saturday evening, I can find my own history, I can find, I can find meaning without white adjacency. I think that happens to a lot of communities and immigrants that come to this country. And so I just wanted to express this.
Thank you for sharing. Reverend, what do you think Reverend Mays would have to say today, Pastor?
Hallelujah, thank you, Lord. For telling the truth. For telling the truth and being bold enough to bring what happened in the past to the present and allow everyone to see that we can't change what happened then, but there's still an opportunity to change it now. It still exists, but we still have an opportunity to do something in spite of what adversarial opposition might exist. I think the play spoke truth to power, but it reminds me of a mark has been left, but what mark will we leave? And we can't do it in isolation or in fragments or in portions. It must be done together. And I think this is a great example of diversity, of brilliance, of courage, that is not just marginalized and kept in this room, but we leave out the room and take it with us and do something about it. It just won't be our history. Together we can make a new history.
Even if it's just us. William Murphy, that's William Murphy's song. If you don't know it, you should go on something and find it. Even if it's just us. I'm walking over here because the house of big pots was referenced a lot in the play, and she lived in the house with the big pots with me. So. That's my sister. My wife is next to her. She visited the house with the big pots. So, anyone else? Yes, please.
I'm just going to say this, brother. I remember us having this conversation about this, I think, a couple years ago. I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you that you went through, and not only went through, you tackled a tough subject respectfully. So as a bystander, seeing you grow from college to now, I'm really proud of you, my friend.
Thank you. I have to do this because I'm old, you get old, you get to do stuff, you know? But this is a Mays family over here. I didn't get nervous until I saw them come in. I knew the good Reverend Mays quite well. Anyway, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, this was excellent. And how courageous of you to do that at a time in which it needs to be talked about, the conversation needs to be spoken about. We can agree to disagree, but we all have to collaboratively work and live here together. So I applaud you on what you've done. I love the play. The conversation needs to be had. We need not to push it away, push it to the side. It needs to be discussed. And I appreciate Paul Black who invited me. Thank you so much. Love you. And everyone, thank you so much. This was wonderful. The conversation needs to be had. Instead of us pushing it under the rug as if it doesn't exist, it does. It needs to be talked about.
Thank you. One more hand for our friends. And for all of you for coming out, and even if it's just us. Huh? Thank you so much.